Hello, my name's Carl and this is the Strawbyte workshop. Do you know, a good sliding mitre saw is almost an essential tool in most workshops. What I can't understand is why they're so big. So in today's programme we're going to be taking a look at the DeWalt 778 sliding mitre saw and seeing whether that offers a better option for smaller workshops with less room. That's all coming up after this. Now, I've been in my workshop for around 6 months now, and whilst my workshop is 3 times as big as my old one, this Evolution Rage 3S still feels like a really big tool. You see, the big problem with sliding mitre saws is that they run on rails that stick out the back. In the case of this Evolution saw, you need somewhere in the region of 510 millimeters behind the saw in order for you to be able to make cuts. Now, the amount of room this saw takes up is probably my only complaint. In every other respect, this makes good cuts, and it's been a regularly used tool in my workshop for a number of years now. Even in my Makers Monday featured maker video, I called this tool out in particular as my favourite tool in the workshop. And this isn't just a problem for Evolution. In fact, it's a problem of all saws of this type. Basically, if the rails stick out of the back, you need an awful lot of room behind the saw in order to set the thing up in a workshop. And I know what a few of you are going to say is, well, Carl, why not get a smaller saw? Perhaps a 216mm compact mitre saw rather than a sliding mitre saw would be better for you. Well, I just like the larger cutting capacity. It makes the saw so much more versatile that I can cross cut up to 300mm on this and to a depth of around 80mm. And that is an important thing for me in this particular workshop. Your mileage may vary, but certainly a large capacity saw is high on my list. So let me introduce to you the DeWalt DWS778 sliding mitre saw. It comes out of the box ready assembled, and it's actually quite a small compact footprint compared to the other saw that I have. It's fitted with a 250mm blade. There's enough teeth on this blade really for pretty much all cross-cutting operations. The motor is rated at 1650 watts. The saw comes in 2 versions. There's a 240 volt version, and if you're based in the UK and you work on sites, there is a 110 volt version available as well. This has a similar cutting capacity to the Evolution saw, only the rails protrude from the front along which the saw slides. Its maximum reach is 305mm, and the maximum depth of cut is 85mm, which is broadly speaking similar to the Evolution saw you saw earlier. So to release the saw, pull this knob on the side and the saw head comes up. The mitre action is controlled by a lever at the front. It operates to the left and to the right. There are positive stops for 45 degrees, 30 degrees, 22.5 degrees, 15 degrees and 0. And the saw will swing past 45 and give you a 50-degree mitre cut as well. So the saw bevel is controlled with this knob at the back, and the saw rotates over to 45 degrees to the left hand side. So the blade guard is retracted with a palm grip, and that allows you to make your cut. You can use your left or right hand, it doesn't seem to matter on this particular saw, which is great for the lefties amongst us. It's worth pointing out that the blade guard is retracted quite early in the cut, so you really want to make sure that you keep your hands well away from the cutting area. The saw has a split fence, one side of which is adjustable to enable you to tip the saw over for those beveled angles. Disappointingly, there are no mounting options for a sacrificial fence on this particular saw, so you're pretty much limited to attaching your sacrificial fence, if you want one, to the saw with double-sided tape, a technique that I've used repeatedly in the past with the Evolution saw. The insert for the saw kerf is a fairly simple shape, and I haven't tried making a zero clearance insert for this particular saw, but it seems perfectly possible. And another thing I like about the DeWalt is the tools you need to adjust the saw and also to remove the blade are attached to the tool itself. Very nice. So I've turned off the lights so that we can see the shadow line feature much clearer. As we bring the saw down closer to the workpiece, you'll see a dark line in the middle of the shot, which is essentially where the blade is going to fall onto the workpiece. This enables you to easily line up your cut mark to the blade for accurate first time cuts. And I have to say, this is a feature that I've enjoyed a lot. So in this shot you can see the dust collection, and it's pretty good, but of course with MDF in particular you see an awful lot of dust thrown out into the air off the back of the saw blade. So far things seem broadly similar between this DeWalt saw and my Evolution, but there are some important differences. The DeWalt saw lacks a trenching cut feature, something that I really didn't use very much on the Evolution saw, and in fact actually on the 2 or 3 occasions that I did, found it to be not all that accurate. The little thumb screw that you use as a stop has a tendency to undo. Now, one of the big differences I'm going to miss on the Evolution saw is the ability to cut multiple materials, everything from wood, plastic, brass, aluminium, even steel and rebar, wood with nails in it. The DeWalt blade, on the other hand, is only really rated for plastics, aluminium and wood. But what about that all-important problem, space? Will I be able to fit this saw in a much more compact space? Let's set up a brief experiment to see. So I'm using this Mac pack as a sort of fake wall, and I can see that from the front of the fence to the wall I need 260 millimeters of space, and that's around 50% of the space required compared to the Evolution saw. Now all DeWalt tools these days come with the airlock hose system, and this comes ready able to accept that. Let me go and get the hose. So to fit the special airlock connector pushes onto the hole, and with a twist it's now locked in place. But you can already see part of the problem. Whereas I was able to get the saw quite close to the wall without the hose, with the hose we're a lot further away. So let's just see how much more space we need. Measuring again from the front of the face. So we need 370 millimeters. That's an extra 110 millimeters. That almost erodes 50% of the benefit that we had in moving this tool closer to the wall before. I would have thought that with a bit of design you could have had the hose coming in from the top or from the side, and you would still retain that ability to have the saw much closer to the wall. So a little bit disappointing, but it's worth knowing that with the recommended dust hose connector you're not going to be able to get this as close to the wall. Right then, so that's enough of looking at the saw. Let's get it onto the stand and see how it performs. Okay, so let's see how this does on a range of timbers, including softwood, hardwood and plywood. So there we have our softwood. This is the hardwood cut. Again, I think, you know, there's very little tear out. And the plywood. So bear in mind that this is a brand new saw with a newly sharp blade. The cut quality overall is pretty good. I'm really impressed. But it's not meant to be a comparison between this and the Evolution saw. The DeWalt saw is, in my opinion, only marginally better in terms of cut quality to the Evolution saw when the blade was new. I've always been happy with the cuts in timber on the Evolution saw, but obviously really it's the multi-material properties of the blade that I was particularly fond of. So there we have it. I'm pretty happy with this DeWalt DWS778 sliding mitre saw. As you can see on the stand there is plenty of room at the back, and I'm sure when I build a more permanent mitre saw station I could make best use of the space saving. Like I said earlier, the hose attachment I think undermines a little perhaps the savings that you're going to get in terms of space. The saw itself is for sale in the UK. From Amazon it's about £399. I'll leave a link to the saw on Amazon in the description. Anyway, that's all for now. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments of your small workshop frustrations, and I'll be interested to see whether they are shared with other viewers or myself. If you're new to my channel, please do subscribe, but for now, from the workshop, cheerio.